16 to 26 December 1944, Ardennes, Battle of the Bulge. Roads choked with men, fuel, and steel. Fog, snow, and radio failures turned command nets into paper chains. In several documented episodes, American Tank-Destroyer Battalions operating in the Ardennes broke German armored thrusts not by grand maneuvers from headquarters, but by blunt, local action from crews and individual gunners who exploited geometry, road choke points, and exposed logistics. This film examines those unit-level records, not myth, focusing on the 705th Tank-Destroyer Battalion's actions around Bastogne and recorded after-action material from the 899th and other battalions that show how gunners' on-the-spot decisions produced disproportionate results in December 1944. The U.S. Tank Destroyer Force was conceived to counter massed enemy armor with mobility, concentrated anti-tank fire, and ambush tactics. Vehicles such as the M10, M18, and later the 90mm M36 provided highly mobile gun platforms, but doctrine insisted on coordinated action, platoon and battalion-level fires, mutual support, and fire discipline. In the Ardennes that winter, those doctrinal ideals met terrain and weather that favored short, violent firefights on narrow roads. Official unit diaries and after-action reports from December 1944 repeatedly describe how visibility, fuel shortages, and congested roads forced decentralized decisions. AARs preserved in National Archives indexes show commanders noting local initiative and rapid gunnery decisions as recurring causes of local enemy losses. In short, the tools were doctrine-built. The results often came from individuals adapting doctrine to frozen reality. Company and battalion histories place the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion in the Bastogne sector from 19 to 26 December 1944, attached at times to elements of the 101st Airborne and nearby armor. Unit summaries and contemporary records credit 705th crews with destroying dozens of armored vehicles during the siege. One post-war battalion accounting lists 39 enemy tanks destroyed by its gunners during that Bastogne period. These are not hearsay. The 705th's unit history and veteran accounts record repeated choke point ambushes where small detachments engaged road-bound columns, targeted lead vehicles and supply trucks, and thereby produced cascading immobilization of enemy formations. These descriptions match the tactical geometry described in after-action material. A well-placed shot to a lead vehicle on a narrow road could strand an entire column and convert mobility into a kill zone. The 899th Tank Destroyer Battalion is documented in December 1944 period records in the Ardennes sector and in published unit histories. Its after-action reports are catalogued in CMH holdings. Within tank destroyer lore, a named example, Herschel F. Briles of Company C, 899th, won the Medal of Honor for actions in November 1944 at Cherpensil by risking his life to save crew members from burning destroyers. Briles' citation and the 899th's AAR entries illustrate a broader, documented reality. Individual crew leaders and non-commissioned officers routinely made split-second decisions under fire that were not spelled out in doctrine but were recorded in unit reports as decisive. While Briles' MOH action is not a case of taking out a whole panzer column, his documented courage and the 899th's records show that low-level initiative was both common and consequential in late 1944 Western Front fighting. In the Bastogne pocket, the 705th Tank-Destroyer Battalion's after-action record describes repeated short-range ambushes in which small numbers of M18 Hellcats deployed on hull-down positions and road flanks broke up larger German assaults. On 25 December, battalion narratives record an attack by roughly 18 Panzer IVs and supporting elements. Dispositions of two vehicle sections and crossfires with infantry weapons produced rapid tank losses and halted the thrust. These actions illustrate a tactical pattern. The Hellcat's high speed and accurate 76mm gun let crews choose hull-down points and strike critical elements of a formation, lead tanks, fuel trucks, half-tracks, to create physical blockages and smoke screens that multiplied effects. The 705th accounted for dozens of enemy AFVs in the Bastogne period, a fact corroborated across battalion histories and operational summaries. The 899th Tank-Destroyer Battalion's wartime records and Herschel F. Briles' Medal of Honor citation show how individual heroism and on-the-spot decision-making were recorded by commanders and later used to justify awards. Briles' November 20, 1944 citation near Scherpenzell details him leaving cover to rescue crew members from burning tank destroyers and forcing enemy surrender. Official documentation that unit-level initiative could decisively influence local outcomes. While Briles' MOH action predates the Ardennes and is not an example of a single gunner stopping a panzer column, it is precisely the sort of repeatedly documented ground-level initiative that unit AARs highlight as a reason small teams frequently change tactical outcomes in late 1944 actions. The 899th's reports and citation papers are preserved in tank destroyer archives and Medal of Honor collections. Across multiple battalion AARs from December 1944, the mechanics of a column kill recur in almost identical language. Target the lead vehicle to create an immediate physical choke point. Then disable or ignite the supply vehicles and half-tracks to produce smoke and secondary fires that blind and jam traffic. After-action mathematics were crude but effective. A disabled lead tank at a 12-foot wide lane turns a column into a static target. A burning fuel truck produces thick smoke that stops follow-on movement and complicates recovery. Hellcat crews used a mix of AP for engines and tracks and HE for igniting fuel and soft targets in rapid sequence when opportunity allowed. These combined effects, geometry, ammunition mix, and rapid follow-up fire from supporting infantry and artillery are repeatedly cited in the 705th and other December AARs as the proximate cause of column immobilization. On 25 December 1944, battalion and regimental narratives place the 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion in the thick of the Bastogne perimeter fights. The 705th, largely equipped with M18 Hellcats, was parceled in small platoons to paratrooper regiments. Its after-action narrative records a coordinated defense in which two vehicle sections and single-vehicle ambushes produced rapid results against a German Panzer IV attack. The record is specific. An 18-tank attack was split and blunted by crossfire from Hellcats, Shermans, artillery, and infantry anti-tank teams. Though two Hellcats were lost early, the remaining pair accounted for multiple Panzer IVs before the Germans withdrew. The battalion's compiled accounting lists roughly 39 to 43 enemy AFVs destroyed in the Bastogne period, A clear, documented example of how dispersed tank-destroyer assets, acting in small units and in close coordination with infantry, produced outsized effects on columns and attacks. Across the Ardennes AAR corpus, a consistent phrase appears. Commanders recorded instances of local initiative or improvised gunnery when describing how small teams arrested enemy momentum. Higher-level doctrine prescribed coordinated, platoon-level salvos, but documents from the period, Army Center of Military History Collections, and battalion after-action reports note that fog, radio congestion, and road choke points forced crews to act on immediate observation. The practical mechanics are described concretely. Crews shifted aim from long-range interdiction to disabling lead vehicles and fuel trucks with rapid AP-HE mixes. Artillery was then called to exploit the blocked column. The CGSC monograph on tank-destroyer doctrine and the CMH Bastogne study both record this pattern and explicitly link it to the frequent success of dispersed tank-destroyer deployments in December 1944. Documented named actions exist in the tank-destroyer record. Staff Sergeant Herschel F. Briles, 899th TD, is one well-documented example whose Medal of Honor citation and unit history demonstrate how individual decisions shaped outcomes at small scale. Briles' November 20, 1944 citation describes risking his life to rescue crew members and forcing enemy surrender. The 899th history records the unit's role on the northern flank of the Ardennes during December. But historians caution against over-attribution. The AAR corpus seldom credits a single gunner with annihilating an entire panzer column by themselves. Instead, records attribute column immobilizations to combined actions, gunners, infantry, artillery, engineers, reflected across the 705th, 899th, and other unit reports. The documentary record therefore supports a distributed causality model. Decisive results came from local gunnery plus supporting arms, not lone cinematic single-gunner miracles. Tank-destroyer AARs from the Ardennes repeatedly emphasize that an apparent single-vehicle kill on a column was almost always the opening act in a web of supporting fires and engineer obstacles. Battalion reports note that crews would disable a lead tank or ignite a fuel truck, then immediately call for artillery or mortar fires to rake the trapped vehicles, while nearby engineers or infantry exploited the blockage to set demolitions or close the road. The 705th's December narratives describe exactly this choreography. Hellcats used hull-down positions to strike hard targets, and artillery regiments then engaged the immobilized mass to prevent recovery or towing, a combined arms mechanism that multiplies a gunner's immediate effects into a tactical defeat for the column. This pattern is explicit in unit AARs and the CMH Bastogne study. The 705th After-Action Report and the battalion narrative for the Bastogne period provide a concrete case study. On 25 December, entries record Hellcat sections deployed on flanks and small rises, engaging a German armored thrust. The battalion's consolidated accounting for the Bastogne period lists on the order of 39 enemy AFVs destroyed, attributed to the battalion's action in and around Bastogne. The AAR sequence, lead vehicle hit, secondary fires, artillery patterning, and follow-on infantry control matches the generalized column kill mechanics in other battalion logs. That precise tally and the stepwise description of how immobilization turned into destruction come from the battalion's compiled AAR and corroborating operational summaries archived in military collections. Named citations like Staff Sergeant Herschel F. Briles, Medal of Honor, confirm the presence of decisive local action in late 1944 fighting. Briles citation, 20 Nov 1944, documents personal initiative under fire and is preserved in Medal of Honor repositories and unit histories. But the documentary corpus also shows its limits. After-action pages rarely capture every interlocutor. Infantry, forward observers, engineers, and artillery batteries are often recorded separately. So single AARs can understate the combined nature of a defeat. Historians who analyze the Ardennes period and doctrinal studies of tank-destroyer employment warn against attributing whole column destruction to one gunner alone. Properly read, the records show repeated examples of gunners creating the critical condition, a blocked road, that, when followed by supporting arms, produced the destruction documented in battalion tallies. That distributed causality is the consistent archival finding. A recurring theme in Ardennes AARs is that the opportunity to strike a column rarely arrived by chance. It was created by effective reconnaissance and disciplined observation. Tank-destroyer scouts, cavalry recon elements, infantry patrols, and forward observers provided the local picture. Where lead vehicles were, what the road surface looked like, and where concealment or embrasures existed. The 705th and adjacent units often credit recon reports and patrol contact as the trigger for ambush placement. A scout's radio call identifying a stalled truck or a skirmish at a bridgehead gave gun crews the geometry they needed to select targets and firing arcs. Forward observers then registered artillery to bracket the road once the initial disabling shot created the blockage. The archive language is precise. Recon identified choke point, engaged, called fires. German operational documents and captured war diaries, corroborated in Allied interrogations and post-war studies, repeatedly show that by December 1944, German armored formations were vulnerable to non-combat immobilization. Fuel shortages, worn tracks, mechanical failures, and overloaded vehicles were common. The Ardennes offensive speed demanded fuel lines and maintenance units. A stalled engine or broken track in a wooded lane could halt dozens of vehicles. Allied interrogations and intelligence summaries in the CMH collections report German supply bottlenecks and the tactical consequence. Columns slowed, crews dismounted, and recovery equipment lagged. That structural fragility multiplied the effect of well-placed Allied gunnery. An accurately placed shot to an engine or fuel truck often produced not one casualty, but a long-term blockage that supporting arms could exploit. The tactical effects recorded in battalion records emerged only after hours of paperwork, interrogation reports, and cross-referencing. AARs were compiled from crew members' statements, infantry logs, artillery fire records, and prisoner interrogations. The 705th's consolidated Bastogne period accounting, listing roughly 39 AFVs destroyed, was the result of this laborious post-action process. Prisoner of war interrogations often confirmed vehicle losses and unit identities. Field photographers and intelligence officers attached photos and captured serials to the reports. That documentary triangulation explains why battalion tallies are reliable in aggregate, but cautious about assigning sole credit to a single gunner.
AAR compilers routinely distributed cause across the combined arms contributors and noted uncertainty where eyewitness reports conflicted. The archive thus supports the documentary conclusion. Column defeats were group achievements, recorded after careful cross-checking, not instantaneous attributions.
The M-18 Hellcat's operational role in December 1944 was not mythic. It was a documented mix of speed, a low profile, and a high-velocity 76mm gun that allowed crews to choose firing positions and, when necessary, conduct hit-and-run strikes. Unit accounts from the 705th indicate that crews used the Hellcat's mobility to occupy hull-down positions on small rises and then melt away or relocate after firing, complicating German recovery efforts. Tactical manuals and doctrinal studies record the prescribed mix of AP for armor and HE for soft targets, a combination tank-destroyer crews themselves reported employing when the aim was to stop engines, ignite fuel, and produce smoke that increased the chance of a column becoming jammed. The practical effect, fast vehicle, careful shot selection, and immediate use of supporting fires is repeatedly recorded in battalion AARs and doctrinal analyses. Post-engagement accounting in December 1944 depended heavily on intelligence, prisoner interrogations, captured unit rosters, and photographic evidence. After-action procedures required Battalion S2 and intelligence sections to corroborate crew reports with POW statements and serials recovered from destroyed vehicles. The Eisenhower Library's Ardennes Subject Guide lists specific AAR boxes, including files for the 899th and other TD battalions, used to compile theater assessments. Those institutional processes explain why battalion tallies, such as the 705th's Bastogne accounting, are treated as compiled, corroborated figures rather than instant eyewitness tallies. In short, the record that credits a battalion with dozens of AFVs destroyed is the product of interrogation, photo ID, and cross-checked reporting. Modern doctrinal and historical studies place emphasis on both command intent and localized leadership. CGSC and Leavenworth analyses of the tank-destroyer force, which review doctrinal aims and wartime practice, argue that effective outcomes in late 1944 were the result of decentralized decision-making nested within command frameworks. Commanders expected initiative at lower levels when contact was chaotic. Unit AAR language from the Ardennes routinely praises initiative while still documenting combined arms context, and historical syntheses therefore interpret column defeats as the product of leadership at multiple echelons: gun crews, NCOs, forward observers, and battery commanders, corroborated by after-action and intelligence work. The documentary record thus supports a nuanced conclusion. Gunners mattered greatly, but their success was inseparable from supporting arms and post-battle confirmation. The Ardennes record repeatedly shows that tank-destroyer success against columns depended on close cooperation with infantry. Battalion AARs for the 705th Bastogne and adjacent units document multiple episodes where paratroopers or infantry squads occupied the near flank, spotting targets and sealing escape routes, while Hellcats or Wolverines delivered disabling shots.
These infantry teams often manned anti-tank rifles, bazookas, or demolition charges to ensure a disabled lead vehicle could not be towed. AAR language records several instances where infantry's quick occupation of the roadside prevented German recovery crews from reopening a jammed lane. In short, the single-gunner effect recorded in battalion tallies was routinely a product of coordinated action: gunner shot, infantry hold, artillery finish, a choreography visible across Bastogne period reports.
After a column was immobilized, the immediate scene was grim: burning vehicles, wounded men, and captured crews. Battalion intelligence appendices and POW reports, included in AAR compilations, record that many German crews abandoned vehicles and attempted to seek shelter in woods or surrender. Others were caught in secondary explosions from fuel or ammunition. The 705th Consolidated Accounting in the Bastogne period pairs vehicle tallies with prisoner interrogation summaries used to identify enemy units and confirm losses. Those interrogation reports, preserved alongside the AARs, describe confusion among German crews, delayed recovery attempts, and the inability of repair detachments to reach blocked stretches, which turn short-term stoppages into sustained losses. The archival picture is therefore of tactical success shadowed by human cost.
Historians rely on battalion AARs because they are compiled from multiple cross-checked sources: crew statements, infantry logs, artillery records, photographic evidence, and POW interrogations. The 705th Consolidated Bastogne report, widely cited in CMH studies, illustrates the method. After-action crews filed initial claims. Intelligence sections cross-referenced serials and POW testimony, and S3 officers reconciled fire support logs before producing the battalion tally. Scholarly syntheses, CMH Bastogne study, CGSC doctrinal reviews, therefore treat such tallies as credible aggregate measures while simultaneously warning against narratives that single out lone gunners without showing the supporting arms and the reports that underpin the count. The archival method explains both the reliability and the limits of attributions in the Ardennes record.
Once a column was stopped, the fight to recover vehicles turned into a logistical race against time, weather, and enemy fires. Battalion AARs and intelligence reports from December 1944 show recovery parties attempting to tow or repair disabled tanks and half-tracks under increasingly dangerous conditions. Smoke reduced visibility, ammo cook-offs risked secondary detonations, and German recovery tractors were scarce or themselves vulnerable. Even when German crews organized recovery efforts, engineers and infantry reported being pinned by artillery and small arms fire. Field reports describe tow cables snapped under strain, winches failing in frozen mud, and whole convoys abandoned when a follow-up strike hit the repair zone. The result recorded in many AARs is a gradual conversion of temporary stoppage into permanent loss, an operational attrition driven as much by recovery failure as by the initial shot.
Captured German reports and Allied intelligence summaries in the Ardennes period document command friction. Units lost contact, fuel and replacement parts were misallocated, and local commanders struggled to reconstitute coherent thrusts when columns fragmented. Allied AARs recount how immobilized formations produced immediate tactical dilemmas for German commanders. Do you leave men and materiel to the rear to continue the attack, or halt and try to recover? Allied commanders and intelligence officers exploited this uncertainty. Battalion narratives from the 705th and adjacent units record rapid exploitation of fragmentation. Artillery registration on blocked roads, infantry sweeps to capture POWs, and armored patrols to harass isolated groups. The archival record therefore ties physical immobilization to operational paralysis in German planning, amplifying the local tactical victory.
Many of the documents used to compile AARs were themselves produced by war correspondents, unit photographers, and combat film teams who followed armies into the Ardennes. Intelligence sections used still photos to confirm serial numbers and verify vehicle types. Combat film footage, though selective and subject to censorship, captured burning columns, wrecked pieces, and POWs that later illustrated AAR claims. The Corps and Army photographic sections filed prints that were attached to intelligence packets. Archivists at CMH and the National Archives preserve these images alongside battalion reports. Documentary researchers rely on this visual corpus to triangulate written claims. A labeled photo of a burned Panzer IV with an attached serial card adds concrete corroboration to an otherwise ambiguous crew statement. The record, therefore, is built from words, numbers, and film.
By late December 1944, the Ardennes had yielded a clear archival lesson. Dramatic local results, blocked roads, burning vehicles, rapid POWs, were real, repeatedly recorded, and measurable in battalion tallies. But the documentary verdict recorded in AARs, intelligence appendices, and Medal of Honor files is cautious and collective. The 705th's Bastogne counting, the 899th's unit records, and Center of Military History Analyses all converge on the same conclusion. Column defeats were the product of a tactical chain: reconnaissance, decisive gunnery, infantry containment, and artillery finaling, followed by careful post-action corroboration. No single after-action file credibly credits a lone gunner with annihilating an entire Panzer column without supporting arms confirmation. Instead, the archives show distributed initiative, amplified by combined arms and confirmed by interrogation and photographic evidence. That is the documentary truth. Gunners and small crews mattered enormously, but their successes were inseparable from the integrated battlefield system that recorded and verified them. Subscribe for more documented World War II accounts. Like if this reconstruction clarified the record. Comment with sources or veteran names you'd like us to research next.